He was trained to kill, but his greatest act was choosing not to. This is a true story from Edo-period Japan, a time when the very definition of strength was about to change forever. Imagine a world emerging from centuries of constant war. This was Japan in 1603, the beginning of the Edo period. The endless cycle of battles had finally ceased, and a fragile peace settled over the land. But what happens to the warriors when the wars are over? Samurai were everywhere, their iconic swords still at their waists, but their purpose was now uncertain. These elite fighters, once the deciders of life and death on the battlefield, found themselves in new roles. Many became gate guards, standing watch over castles and official residences. Some traded their armor for ink brushes, becoming clerks and administrators. Others, respected for their discipline, became teachers of etiquette and moral conduct. Peace had arrived, and it demanded a new kind of samurai. It forced them to question everything they had been taught, especially what it meant to be strong. In this era of profound change, a young man named Sakata Jiraiya was born. He came from a prestigious samurai family. His father was a veteran, a man whose hands were calloused from wielding a sword in real, brutal combat. But Jiraiya's world was different. He grew up hearing stories of war, but he never saw it himself. He was a child of peace, yet his training was anything but peaceful. It was relentless, severe, designed to forge him into the perfect warrior of a bygone age. His days began before sunrise, with the cold steel of a sword in his hand, practicing cuts and thrusts until his muscles screamed. He spent hours in silent meditation, learning to master his mind, to empty it of all distraction. Above all, he was drilled in the code of absolute obedience. His Lord's word was law. His father's command was his reality, and one rule was hammered into him, a rule that defined the samurai spirit. A samurai never hesitates. To hesitate was to show weakness. To show weakness was to invite dishonor, a fate worse than death. He was a weapon, honed and ready, waiting for a command. That command came one humid evening. A commotion erupted in the streets. A drunken merchant, emboldened by sake, had publicly insulted a local official. In Edo, Japan, this was a grave offense. The social hierarchy was strict, and disrespect, especially towards the ruling class, could have fatal consequences. A crowd quickly gathered, their hushed whispers turning into a tense murmur. Voices rose, and the situation threatened to spiral out of control. Jiraiya, who was on duty nearby, was ordered to intervene and restore order. Immediately, his training took over. His body moved without thought. His hand went to the hilt of his katana, his thumb resting on the guard, ready to draw the blade in a single, fluid motion. This was the expected response. The crowd knew it. The terrified merchant knew it. A swift strike would end the disrespect, assert the authority of the samurai class, and disperse the crowd. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the flash of steel that would slice through the tension. But then, something unexpected happened. Jiraiya froze. For the first time in his life, he hesitated. His gaze fell upon the merchant, and he saw not a challenger, not an enemy, but a man. He saw the man's hands trembling, not with rage, but with pure, unadulterated fear. He saw a man who had made a foolish mistake, a man who likely had a family, children waiting for him to come home. In that split second, the years of relentless training warred with a single, quiet memory. The voice of his old teacher echoed in his mind, a lesson that had seemed abstract until now. True discipline, his teacher had once said, is not controlling others. It is controlling yourself. Slowly, deliberately, Jirobei's thumb moved away from the sword guard. His hand dropped from the hilt. He did not draw his weapon. Instead, he spoke. His voice was not a shout, but it cut through the noise with calm, firm authority. He addressed the official, then the merchant. He de-escalated the conflict with words, not with violence. The crowd fell silent, stunned. The air, thick with the expectation of blood, began to clear. The merchant was arrested, as he should have been, but he was alive. His family would not have to mourn him that night. Order was restored, not through an act of dominance, but through an act of restraint. In the days that followed, some of Jirobei's fellow samurai mocked him. They whispered behind his back, calling him weak, a coward who was unworthy of his blade. They believed he had failed his duty, that he had dishonored their class by refusing to act decisively. In their eyes, a sword that remains in its scabbard is useless. But his lord saw things differently. The Lord had not wanted chaos or bloodshed in his domain. He had wanted order. Jirobei had achieved that order more effectively than any swift execution could have. He had prevented a minor incident from becoming a tragedy, a public disturbance from becoming a riot. Jirobei was not punished. He was not shamed. Instead, he was reassigned. He was moved from a role of enforcement to one of mediation. His superiors recognized that his true strength lay not in his ability to end a life, but in his wisdom to preserve it. Years passed, Sakata. Jirobei lived a long life, but he never killed anyone. He became a respected teacher, training a new generation of young samurai. He taught them the art of the sword, of course. They learned the stances, the cuts, the discipline required to be a warrior. But he taught them something more, a lesson born from his own experience on that fateful evening. A sword is easy to swing. He would tell his students, anyone can learn to cut. Control is hard. Knowing when not to draw your sword, that is the mark of true mastery. In an era of peace, the concept of strength had to evolve. The popular image of the samurai is often one of stoic, violent warriors obsessed with death and honor. But the story of Edo Japan is far more nuanced and fascinating. Peace forced these warriors to look inward, to redefine their purpose. Power was no longer just external, a measure of how many enemies you could defeat. It became internal. The strongest person was no longer the one with the fastest draw, the one quickest to attack. The strongest person was the one who could master their own impulses, the one who had the discipline to wait, to assess, to choose a better path. Sakata Jirabe died quietly, an old man in an age of peace. His name is not recorded in the annals of famous battles. There are no epic legends of his bloody exploits. His legacy is quieter, more subtle, but his story survived, passed down as an example of a different kind of courage. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most difficult and bravest choice is not to act. It's to show restraint. It's to be the calm in the storm. Sometimes the bravest choice is silence. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more tales of history that challenge the way we see the world. We'll see you in the next one.